All right, let's get into this. When we think of data, we usually picture something kind of cold, maybe a little impersonal. But what if a simple spreadsheet could actually map out the very heart of a city? Well, we're about to look at a project that does exactly that, turning what looks like just rows and columns into this incredible living map of human connection. And it all starts right here with a need. This is a real quote from a woman named Wanda in the Bronx. And her words, wow, they just get right to the core of this whole thing, don't they? It's not always about needing a physical thing. Sometimes it's just about needing to be heard. It's about connection. And in a city with millions of people, you can imagine those needs are absolutely everywhere. They're specific, they're personal, and they are incredibly diverse. This whole project really just kicked off by asking people a simple question. What is it that you need? And the answers that came back, the range is just amazing. It goes from something so deeply human, like just wanting someone to talk to, all the way to the super practical, like, hey, can someone help me with my computer? Or, I really need to figure out how to manage my money. It's a perfect snapshot of what everyday life is really like. So take Lance, for example. Here's a guy in Manhattan, a freelancer, and what he wants is help learning his times tables and how to type. It's such a straightforward, practical goal. Just something to help him improve his skills. And then you've got someone like Carl over in Brooklyn. He's not looking for help with an errand. He's looking for a connection, but through language. He wants to find someone to practice basic French conversation with. Now, keep Carl in mind. He's going to be important in a minute. So this is the big question, isn't it? If a city is just brimming with all these different needs, is it also just as full of gifts, of talents waiting to be shared? Well, let's find out.
Okay, let's flip the coin and look at the other side of this. Because what they found was that for pretty much every person who voiced a need, there was another person out there ready to share a skill, or their time, or some unique talent.
And what's so cool is that it's almost a perfect mirror image of the needs we just saw. People offered up everything from dog walking and homework help to things like trauma support and spiritual counseling. The collective skill set just sitting in this community is, well, it's kind of astounding. You see people like Valerie, a college student up in the Bronx, and she has this very specific, generous offer. She can tutor little kids, kindergarten through second grade, on Sundays. So clear, so helpful, a gift of her time and her knowledge. And then you get these wonderfully creative offers. Take Catherine in Brooklyn. She's not offering to run errands. She can teach you how to use a journal to support your mental health, or even how to write a good poem. That's someone sharing a real passion. And right here, this is where the magic really starts to happen. Remember Carl, our guy who wanted to learn French? Well, it turns out Arlene, who lives in the very same borough, Brooklyn, just happens to be, in her own words, fairly fluent in French and is willing to teach. So you've got all the needs on one side and all the gifts on the other. But right now, they're just data points in a spreadsheet. They're just potential, until someone comes along and starts to weave all those threads together. Just look at this. It's all laid out, right there. On one side, you have Carl in Brooklyn with his very specific need. And on the other, there's Arlene, also in Brooklyn, with the perfect skill to share. It's a perfect match, just sitting there waiting to happen. And that's the real challenge, right? The potential is clear as day, but how do you actually turn that potential into a real conversation, a real lesson, a real human connection? It happens through this, the City Voices Service Exchange. And the concept is so simple, but it's really powerful. It's basically a community where people just trade skills and support each other. It's not charity. It's what's called mutual aid. I'll help you fix your printer, and maybe you can teach me how to cook. There's no money involved. It's all built on trust. And at the center of this whole web isn't some fancy algorithm. It's a person, Dan Frey from Brooklyn. And this is his own description from the spreadsheet. Founder of the exchange, making connections for everyone. He's the human engine, the one reading through everything and making the calls to connect the dots. So the big question is, does this whole thing actually work? Let's take a look at what happens when these connections are finally made. Check this out. Here's a note from Catherine in Brooklyn. She wanted cooking lessons, right? She got matched with a woman named Liza. And here's the result. It's a real, tangible success. She's not just learning, she's actively making meals inspired by this new connection. How great is that? And it's not a one-off thing. It's happening all over the place. Dan, the founder, helped Evelyn with her printer. Eva, who just needed someone to talk to, got paired with Tom and Kim. And that French lesson between Arlene and Carl, yep, it's happening. This isn't just theory. It's real people building actual relationships.
But let's be real for a second. To tell the whole story, we have to acknowledge that building a community isn't always simple or easy. Connecting people is a messy, human process.
And for every wonderful success story, there are these real-world challenges. The notes mention people who were unmotivated to engage or were going through some tough family challenges. One person was even described as just being difficult to connect with. This isn't some flawless, perfect system. It's life. And honestly, that's what makes this whole thing feel so authentic. It's not about perfect outcomes every single time. It's about the patient, persistent effort of building something together. One messy, complicated, and beautiful connection at a time. So all of this kind of brings us to one last big question. In our modern world, which can feel so isolating sometimes, what does a real community even look like anymore? Is it something we've lost? Or is it maybe just hiding in plain sight? Maybe it looks exactly like this. Not some huge top-down program, but just a simple spreadsheet full of names and needs and gifts. It's a network of neighbors helping each other out, not for money, but just because they can. It kind of suggests that in this age of complex algorithms, maybe the most powerful social network is the one we build ourselves, one simple human connection at a time.